Also, wait, why are you still coming to the line that like what the way the Arab states treat Palestinians is like the actual apartheid? I feel like I heard you say it today as
Yeah, I
well.
feel that way. I feel pretty strong about that. Why, you want to turn me back from
I'm
that?
just yeah, because I'm just saying that like with the whole point of apartheid is like it's about intent. It's about the intent to establish a state of like supremacy of one group over another. I don't think Lebanese people are picking up over Palestinian refugees to establish Lebanese supremacy. So I think it looks a bit awkward when you're kind of saying that like you're very quick to commit to the apartheid thing with like Lebanon, but when it comes to West Bank or East Jerusalem or whatever, it's like, oh well, actually, with the legal definition, we don't really know if it. Yeah, so
I guess for me, when I think of like when I think of apartheid, I think of like this is a country that you fully control, that you are doling out rights to citizens for. The biggest complaints about apartheid for Israel have to do with militarily occupied territories. And like, no, in the history of all of mankind is anybody doling out like equal rights to people in militarily occupied territories. So it just seems like really weird. This is why like the argument that I go with everybody's like, okay, well, if we were to solve the border problem, do you think the apartheid would go away? It most likely it should, almost completely. But like, is apartheid ever going away under a military occupation? Almost certainly never. It never will. So it just seems like weird to address that as an apartheid thing. Whereas for the Arab states, like they intentionally and explicitly will maintain second-class citizenship for people in their country for an indefinite amount of time until the Israelis thing is solved, which just seems like really
yeah. So
weird
it's
to
like
me.
conditions that are tantamount to apartheid rather than like actual apartheid. But again, so I suppose if the intent is maybe different, so if there's like intention from the Israeli government to hold on to the West Bank, then that probably becomes more apartheid-esque. Let's say if they annexed it, right? Would it, if they annexed West Bank, would you say it was apartheid?
I mean, if they annexed it and didn't give equal rights, yeah, of course. And I think the
Well, wait,
strongest.
Would
What?
you
Go ahead.
say East Jerusalem is apartheid because that's annexed?
Did they formally annex East Jerusalem?
Yeah. Well, like what's
Like,
an
is it
informal
part?
annexation?
Is it no longer part
Knesset
of
law,
like the
yeah.
military borders? Well, the Knesset was set up in West Jerusalem initially, right? Did they move it to East Jerusalem?
No, the Knesset it was passed through the Knesset to annex East Jerusalem, if that's what you mean by formal.
Oh, then I mean, are those people? Well, actually, wait. Haven't historically the Arab Palestinians in East Jerusalem been granted more rights than the Palestinians in other occupied territories? I could be wrong on that.
Well, they can get blue cards if they opt into it, and they have to go through a whole procedure, which the Israelis who live there don't have to go through.
Sure.
But I think it's like 5% of Palestinians in East Jerusalem have Israeli citizenship, but
Sure.
most of them don't.
I mean, if it's formally annexed into Israeli territory and there are different sets of rights being doled out to different people, in my opinion, that's apartheid. So if that is going on in the case of East Jerusalem, if this is formally annexed territory and Arab Palestinians living there don't have like a reasonable path to citizenship or reasonable anything that like any other citizen would have, then yeah, I would say these would be apartheid conditions for these people.
Okay.
so just so just backing up a little bit. So you're talking about that this is like a military occupation, so you can't compare to apartheid. But this has been going on for so many decades. I mean, this is like when you have a situation where, like we talked about earlier, there are people who are just have spent their entire life in this state, and it's not just that it's like military occupied, but the fact that they don't have freedom of movement within their own territories, the fact that actual Palestinian areas within the West Bank are becoming separated from each other and fenced apart from each other because of the settlements, and the fact that Palestinians, I think, even within like the West Bank, need the Israeli land agency. I can't remember the name for it, but they need to be
Yeah, they
granted
got building
permits.
permits and shit. Yeah.
Yeah, from Israel to build houses like on their own land. I mean, yeah, I don't know why we're kind of splitting hairs with this, especially when like prominent South Africans and South Africans in general say like, yeah, this seems like apartheid.
I don't. I wouldn't care what other. A whole bunch of people around the world are gonna have different reasons for saying different things. Like I'm pretty sure the United States, like for instance, they refused to condemn Israel on that prior resolution for actions in the Gaza Strip or whatever. But like, does that mean that like everybody in the U.S. doesn't think something wrong is happening there, or is it like a political posturing for one reason or another? Like I agree that the situations in the West Bank, like every single thing matches apartheid. Like I don't think I don't think anybody could disagree with that. It just seems weird to call it apartheid when the issue isn't apartheid. The issue is the military occupation. The border has to be solved. The apartheid will never be solved until the border is solved. So it feels weird to fixate on the apartheid part because that's not going away without the border stuff being solved. Yeah.
Oh, like, and I think you're muted.
a lot of people understand when you say apartheid, they understand what you're saying. Like you said, the conditions, check, 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 check. So saying it, I mean, guess quibbling over it isn't really meaningful. For all intents and purposes, these people live under apartheid conditions.
Yeah, but then it's a morally loaded term that people just use to say good or to feel good about themselves.
But it's morally loaded for a reason, which is
the moral implications are applicable to these people.
Yeah, but the moral implications aren't that, like, we would be having a far different conversation if there was one state, if Israel annexed everything and Palestinians didn't have rights. Like, at that point, I don't know if anybody could support the country of Israel. That would be fucking insane. If they annexed both territories and Palestinians were treated as second-class citizens, we have we do have Apartheid 2.0, an international affair that needs to be dealt with. But right now, the issue isn't that. It's military borders. That's the huge issue, and that's what needs to be solved. Not the apartheid conditions. Those will be fixed.
Well, how do you communicate that in a way that evokes the conditions they're under? Because the military occupation is illegal, the enforcement of the occupation is illegal, and they live under apartheid conditions. So when people hear apartheid, they hear the exact conditions these people are living in. Plus, there's some additional, cherries on top that are pretty awful.
Yeah, but people now, everybody's just protesting against apartheid conditions. But we don't need to protest against apartheid conditions. We have to protest to get borders established. That's the important thing that needs to happen. The apartheid is never going away without the borders.
Is your problem that with the problem with apartheid is that it just seems like a foot in the door for one state, because the logical conclusion to apartheid is voting rights in one
Truly,
state.
it is. Yes, unfortunately, for a lot of people. But
it's not about describing the conditions. That's not your problem. The problem is just that, like, the path it leads people down.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm good faith, I'm sure there are some people that talk about the apartheid thing that are legitimately just concerned about the status of the Palestinians living there. But again, that status is never going to be fixed by fixing apartheid. It's going to be fixed by establishing borders and a new country.
Well,
That's the only way to fix it.
Right, but if our governments and the United Nations and the EU and whoever else go in to try to fix the situation, they're not going to be like, well, we kept hearing apartheid from the people, so that's really what we're going to focus on. They're going to go in and actually address the issues. That's why we have representative governments, right?
I mean, are they? Is that happening right now? It doesn't seem like anybody's getting any closer.
Not at the moment, but I'm just saying that, like, we're not muddying the water so much saying apartheid that it's going to, like, halt the peace process and some
but I
resolution
think
is going to happen.
When the issue gets muddied, though, the political pressure doesn't exist to resolve the issue, right? Like, if there was mounting political pressure on the world for, like, a two-state solution, that would be something that would start to become reflected in our leaders. Right now, there's just mounting pressure for something that will never happen, which is an ending of the apartheid. That doesn't mean anything. Nothing's going to happen there. So there's pressure, but it's just anger. It doesn't do anything. It's like BLM. Like, what changed from BLM? Nothing. What changed from Occupy Wall Street? Nothing, right? Like, it's just a bunch of pressure, and then people get mad, and eventually they forget, and we move on.
So I don't think that's accurate, because those apartheid conditions they have the effect of radicalizing Palestinians, removing trust in some kind of process. Those are issues that impact the lives of Palestinians, and those are currently illegal. So when we're talking about, like, somebody coming to the table doing the right thing, shouldn't the U.S. be pushing Israel to do the right thing? At least so we agreed that the settlements are a really huge issue, that they're illegal, that they should stop. The settlements are a big part of the apartheid, because those are the people who are pushing really far out and then having these fences built around them that then are further segregating the Palestinian areas. So I don't know why we wouldn't say that, okay, maybe we can't negotiate with Hamas, but surely we can negotiate with Israel, get them to start doing the right thing. That pushes things at least in the right direction. That's the thing that we can do today, right?
I feel like there are such simple, powerful arguments, and the apartheid stuff muddies everything so much. Like, you need to stop building settlements in the West Bank because it's furthering a two-tier citizen system where Israelis that are moving into the West Bank are given more rights than Palestinian people in the West Bank. Like, that's an argument, but I feel like it's convoluted. I feel like the much clearer argument is, like, you can't build settlements in militarily occupied territories. That's on a hinge. That's insane. I feel like that's incredibly simple. I think that's a rule that you could craft for the entire world. And it's just, like, so obviously true that if you're military occupying a place, you can't build homes there and move in citizens of your country. It's like Russification or whatever, essentially. That's wild. And I feel like it's such a simple argument. It's easy to understand. We don't have to talk about any apartheid shit. We don't have to talk about equalization of rights. You just can't build houses in places you military occupy. I feel like it's
would you revise what you were saying, that it's like the Palestinians have to have, like, 5 years of peace, and then maybe we can see where we go? Would you revise that to say, like, Israel has to stop building these settlements today, or there's no reason to think things will move forward?
I mean, I think Israel should stop building settlements. I think that we should pressure them to stop building settlements. I just don't know I just don't know if they will, and I don't know if like they have the desire to. I don't know if they feel like they benefit from it, but I think that's like one area where the U.S. I think a lot of our past presidents have. I think Bush, I think Obama. I don't know if Biden has mentioned anything about settlements, but like, yeah, I think that like pressuring Israel to at the very least stop building fucking new settlements or expanding on them would be a good idea. Yeah, I think that's true.
What would pressure look like?
What is
Withholding
pressure?
funds, like
Yeah, it'd
Bush
be-
Senior froze like a $10 billion fund in exchange for a settlement freeze before
Something like
Madrid. Yeah.
boycotting, perhaps. I think divesting and maybe sanctions. I think those
I
are.
mean,
Or-
actually, even
or-
because the region is so small, like boycotts are pretty. Like I think even Jordan Valley settlements got really f***ed over by a boycott campaign like a few years ago. So yeah.